the account of right and wrong. What is the praxeology? What to do, what not to do? What is the futurology or eschatology? What's going to happen in life after death, etc., etc. So what does the Islamic worldview say? And then we look at the foundations of Western worldview. I.e., what does the what's al-fikr al-gharbi? What is the Western thought based on? So we go through that and we look at a comparison between the two. After we get our worldview sorted out, i.e., we get our foundations in order, we start to explore key topics now. And this is what you find in the course outline, inshallah, which admin can share with you. That just gives you the course aims, objectives, and outlines of each session. So once we get the worldview done, we dive into key topics that I'm going to cover. And I'll just briefly mention them to you. So the first two lessons are looking at foundations, as I mentioned. And then the next lesson will start, okay, what about rationality? Do we, is reason the only way we gain knowledge of the world and ourselves and reality? If not, then are there other types of belief? Like, for example, religious beliefs. What kind of epistemology is religious epistemology? Do we give reason precedence over anything else? What does the West say? And what's an Islamic view on it? The mainstream Sunni view of it. Then we go into natural theology. Can the mind determine the fundamental truths of religion without needing religion? What's the Islamic perspective? Is there even a natural theology according to the Islamic tradition? Because many people say there isn't a natural theology like in the Christian sense. Then we look at some proofs for the existence of God. I look at some traditional proofs, but what I introduce students to is some new and different arguments for the existence of God. Those are very interesting from our own tradition, and of course from the philosophy of religion, i.e. the area of religion that uses philosophy. I also look at some neglected arguments in our own Sunni tradition, arguments that people have neglected, and I offer my own arguments as well to see what the students think on that. Then we look at miracles. Are miracles rationally possible? Why are miracles attacked? And what is the Islamic view on miracles? So we'll look at that. Then something new which you won't find anywhere, as far as I know, in any institution, simply because I think people are not studying this particular area. And that is what I'm calling God talk. We're going to look at apophatic and cataphatic traditions, and then we're going to see does Islam have both these kinds of God talk approaches from our tradition. We'll look at that, and we'll look at some new accounts of how to understand the divine from within the Islamic tradition. We have to do that because that's the way the field is. Muslims are starting to write about, philosophically, how do we talk about Allah Azza wa Jal? Is he absolutely ineffable, i.e. is he beyond description? Who's saying these types of arguments? Ghazali mentions this as well previously. Some people are picking up his arguments, for example. And then we're going to look at, after we look at God talk, we're going to look at familiar puzzles around divine attributes, like the puzzle of omnipotence, Allah's power, the puzzle of omniscience, if Allah knows everything, where is freedom? And then I'm probably this year, and this is what I'm thinking, this year I'm probably going to dive into, depending on the background of our students, I'm probably going to dive into something that was specific to Indian ulama, and that is about the divine, the divine attribute of, is it possible for Allah Azza wa Jal to say an untruth? I might bring that in this year. I've written about it and it's been published, so I'll see, because that's also a hot topic. And then we're going to look at something very, very philosophical, and our last group that had this actually quite enjoyed it, and that is, does Allah, what is the scope of Allah's power, Jalla wa Ala? Does it extend to only possible things or every single thing there is? What is necessary, what is possible, and what is impossible as well? we call this in philosophy the modal economy. So we have some things that are mumkinat, possible, things that are mustahilat or mumtani'at, impossible, and the things that are necessary. Yeah. Does Allah have control over all of these or not? Ulama had a lot to say about this, actually. Then we're going to go into something called meta-ethics. What are the theories about right and wrong? Can the mind know what is right and wrong? Can we, human beings, produce ethics, i.e. right and wrong? Or do we need revelation? We'll look at Western views, we'll look at Islamic views on this. And then the one area that I'm very particularly interested in is the problem of sentient suffering, i.e. why do creatures suffer? What's the purpose behind suffering? In this particular year, for this cohort, I'm going to bring in the latest material on particularly animal suffering, because I've just published 2 academic papers on it. So I will be introducing that into the course. And then we're going to look at consciousness and the soul. Is this a problem for Muslims, for example, or is it a problem for atheists and naturalists, people who only believe in nature? Then I'm going to jump onto something that's never studied ever, as far as I know, not even in the madrasa for some reason, is al-mi'ad, the bodily resurrection. What are the different models of bodily resurrection? I.e. that when we die, do we have the very same body that is raised in Yawm al-Qiyamah to the one that we had in the dunya? And I want to introduce students to the fact that the ulama are not agreed on it, by the way. It's a fascinating topic, because then it takes us into the topic of personhood. What does it mean to be a person? And then I'm going to jump from that into science. I'm going to look at what's the relationship between science and religion. What do Muslims have to say on this? Because there are many Muslims that are working in science that are producing certain views that we would perhaps say is a bit questionable. So we need to look at what's going on there. Then I'm going to look at tafsir ilmi. Is there such a thing as a scientific interpretation of the Quran and the Hadith? I don't mean scientific in terms of to prove the Quran is miraculous. I don't mean that. I don't mean i'jaz ilmi. I mean, can we have a scientific interpretation of the Quran? Is the Quran a book of science? And then finally, and this was very interesting as well, last year we had a lot of debate and discussion, is there a forbidden marriage, I'm calling it, between evolution and theism? So can Muslims believe in evolution? And I'm going to bring you the latest material on this, cutting edge stuff in this field. And then inshallah, we should be able to get some clarity on it. So that's an overview of the course about what we're covering. I can only say to you that, have a think about it. We do have a taster lesson, of course, coming up. Everything that's been taught here will always be taught with an Islamic solution from regarding each particular topic. But what I'm looking for in this, and I'd like to just put that out there beforehand for you to have a think about, is I really appreciate and I really learn from what students have to say. And often students have a lot to say for me, the instructor, to learn. So it's important that we engage together in these lessons. All the materials will be given beforehand, so there's plenty of time for you, once you've enrolled, to have all the materials. It will be given after the first session, the taster session. So once you're enrolled, you'll get all the materials, inshallah. So that's really it for me. I wanted to just give an overview of it. All the course readings, materials will be put on something like this. We're using courses as a program. I don't know if you all can see it. Let me have a look. Yeah, should be it. So that's all the materials are put on here, and all the recordings are there as well. So there's nothing that you'll ever miss, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So that's my overview for the master course. Give it consideration. I guarantee you will not find it anywhere else. And I hope, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, this is another year where Whitethread are offering a course that is cutting edge and full of current issues and themes that will, inshallah, give us better grounding as we go out in our communities and address these intellectual issues. So thank you for listening and watching. And I pass it over to Sidi Arif for the rest of the opening. I don't know if we're taking questions, but let me know, and I'm happy to take any question regarding the course.
If anyone does have any questions, they can put it in the chat, inshallah, and I'll pass it on to Mufti.
No problem. Jazakumullah khairan.
Assalamu
alaikum wa Imran. It's good to see you.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That's mashallah, very riveting, stimulating presentation. I'm sort of thinking this needs to reach out to the ulama class as well, a bit more.
That's Allah yubarik feek. No, the work that you're doing is also phenomenal, and I can't wait to hear about, and like any of the students here, what Maulana has to say, inshallah. So stay tuned, everyone. Stay tuned.
Jazakumullah khair. Maulana Imran, if you can tell us about the course that you are.
Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا في ملء السماوات وملء الأرض وملء ما بينهما ملء ما شئت من شيء بعد نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم. So my name is Imran Malji. I'm based in London. I've graduated from the traditional Dars al-Nidami from Kent, Darul, but alhamdulillah, I've managed to study from with other places and institutes and teachers, including the Whitethread Institute head or founder, Mufti Abdul Rahman. So for a number of years, alhamdulillah, we used to gather with him at his house with a very interesting set of texts and kitabs and very learned people. Just one second. Apologies. Yeah. So, and so for a few years, upon gentle encouragement and persuasion from our teacher Mufti Abdul Rahman, I've taken on this lovely opportunity to be involved in teaching Arabics. And alhamdulillah, I as a teacher, I've just benefited immensely. It keeps me in touch, keeps the learning fresh. Originally, the course was designed, and this was, a key diagnosis as far as I'm concerned, where we have, alhamdulillah, considerable number of graduates in this country, in England, and I'm not as familiar with other terrain elsewhere, but in England, alhamdulillah, we have, as well as our traditional darul, we've sort of moved on to the next generation where we have these part-time institutes that are delivering the Dars al-Nidami and other outlets as well. But people were coming out of these institutes, having studied for 6 years, sometimes even more, but a prolonged period of time had gone, had been invested in learning, but graduates were lacking the confidence in Arabic, speaking, reading, something. The reasons are more than one, and that's a different topic and perhaps an area of study as to why that is happening. So a course was designed originally to help people bridge that gap, to come to sort of do away with that disparity, and primarily focusing on the ability to independently read text in Arabic. The way I often liken it to is, I don't know how things are in school so much now. But I remember as a child, when you started off, we had what they call a sentence maker, a folder where you learn to put words together and make your sentences. And then you had a series of books that you went through, and they were usually color-coded or some kind of schema. And thereafter, you became what you earned a library ticket or badge, which would label you as a free reader. So you were not restricted to what books you could pick from the library. And prior to that, there were sections that were based on ability, and so you were only allowed to take the books from the red corner or the green corner. But eventually, you worked your way up to being a free reader. So that's one of the key skills. What we are aiming is to bring that student who has completed the Dars al-Nidami or its equivalent, or invested a significant time going through all the associated sciences of Nahu and Sarf, but they're still not the equivalent of a free reader. They still struggle to pick up an Islamic text. So we're primarily focusing on the genre of Islamic sciences. And the students are still not able to confidently pick that up and read independently, despite having gone through demanding texts in the Darul, the books of Tafsir, the books of Hadith and Fiqh. So that's the primary aim. Now, depending on intake, so the benefit of Whitethread is it's not anything necessarily set in stone. It's not rigid. It will accommodate the intake. So depending on the intake, we will make the necessary adjustments. And the way in which it is delivered is it's not spoon-fed. And I think that comes as quite a shock to many of the students who've been through Dars al-Nidami or its equivalent. Because one of the problems students of Arabic the common theme we encounter is this sort of stop and start phenomena, where someone's done a 1-year course or a 6-month course or even a 6 years course, and then everything goes inactive, into hibernation, lies dormant for some period of time until the latest inspiration after a bayan or a TikTok video or something sort of remotivates somebody, I need to do something about my Arabic. And then they start again. And then after a period of time, the energy goes. So we want to break away from that stop-start cycle. And we want to equip students with the necessary skills to be independent learners so they can continue this needed journey of growth in Arabic learning. Also, the method. So there are a number of teachers. It isn't just myself, and again, that's one of the strengths in Whitethread, because different teachers are approaching the domain of Arabic, and it's different angles, whether it's Sarf, whether it's Nahu, whether it's Balagha, whether it's Adab, as well as the different levels as well. And each teacher is bringing his own sort of unique approach and background. So with myself, I keep it very practical, and I like to keep it very Quranic, a Quran-based approach. So the examples, the exercises, and there's a lot in my level 2 classes, and even in level 1, there is a heavy theme of i'rab, what we call grammatical analysis or parsing. But I don't keep it abstract. I try to keep it based on a Quranic perspective. So it's a lived experience. One of the key goals is to be connected more with the Quran, with the Book of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So there's a spiritual aspect to it as well. Traditionally, I've taught 2 levels, level 1 and level 2. Level 1, quite often are people coming from very little backgrounds, but mashallah, an impressive level of energy and very determined intentions, and it's amazing what they manage to achieve. So we go through. It's not set in stone, but quite usually we start off with something like what the Urdu Kitab Das Sabak. We use that as a basis just to get the essentials and start the ball rolling. Very quickly moving on to Qasas al-Nabiyyin, and again, it's a very application-based approach. Level 2, so these are students quite often who've been through Dars al-Nizami, or they've done, they've been exposed to a fair period of Arabic learning before. And what I tend to do is use Ālimiyyah, the famous primer matan that's taught in the Middle East, not so popular in the Indo-Pak regions amongst the Darul Ulooms. We sort of take a different path or approach, but I use Ālimiyyah primarily because I think it's just a wonderful text in terms of Nahu to teach, and secondly, it gives us the freedom to adapt the delivery according to the intake. So if we have students whom have sort of completed Dars al-Nizami, or have, or its equivalent, then we're able to use Ālimiyyah and notch things up to a higher level where we can get more involved in nuanced discussions and theoretical debates. But I do keep it practical. So again, I will get from day one, it's i'rab. So whatever concept we're studying, I like it an application immediately in the Quran, or something from the nusus, from the kitabs that are studied. And I think Ālimiyyah gives the freedom. So this year we had people who, a mixed range. So we are able to sort of pitch it in between. We don't go too beyond into sort of advanced discussions, but at the same time, we're not keeping it so basic as well. So I think Ālimiyyah gives that freedom. Previous years, alhamdulillah, we were teaching adab as well, because the intake allowed for that, and it catered for the audience as well, for the students there. And usually it's going to be mukhtarat. But again, we can, one of the strong points of Whitethread is that it will adapt according to the demand, according to the need. So that's things in a gist. I haven't got any sort of wonderful presentation slideshows to present, unfortunately. But again, I'm happy to take questions and help you in your journey, inshallah. Are we all there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, Jazakumullah khair, for that, for the extensive understanding of how the CBA course is delivered. I'm just going to pass it on to Muhtasab after that, and go who will be able to take on the rest of the open day and discuss some of the other courses that are delivered at Whitethread Institute. So, Musab, are you there?
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let me just begin, inshallah. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een amma ba'd. So I don't want to take too long because the courses I'm discussing, we've had them in the last year as well. So let us start with the discussion of the tafsir class, inshallah. So the tafsir class essentially is a really interesting class. So the idea of this tafsir class is to equip the students to be able to give tafsir, inshallah, eventually. After the class has begun, once they've gone through half a year of the tafsir selections and the other ulum al-Quran and other discussions, we cover it from multiple angles. One of the things that it's aiming to do now, and the focus has become, is that the students are then able to hold tafsir classes at least 2 different levels. So Maulana Zishan has been teaching the critique of the Quran and every other, all the other related aspects, especially from Western critique or other hot topics of the day, essentially relating to Quran, like the qira'ah and so on. So he usually deals with that in the modern approaches to the Quran. Then in terms of the ulum al-Quran, we have Maulana Zishan who teaches that, Maulana Hilal who teaches that. Then in terms of the language, style and structure, that's a very interesting, it's basically applied balagha, applied rhetoric of the Quran, which is a fascinating topic, subhanallah. Applied balagha to the Quran, how to discover the balagha in the Quran and appreciate it, understand it. So we do that, and we do the tafsir selections. The tafsir selection, usually we go through about 30 to 35 tafsirs selections, and by the end of it, mashallah, many of the students will have adopted a few tafsirs because we've gone through over 30 of the hundreds of tafsirs out there and looked at their characteristics, their qualities, what their focus is, what their specialization is. So that's the tafsir class. SubhanAllah, out there you have, once I was visiting one of the countries in Scandinavia, and a friend of mine who is not a scholar as such, but he's, mashallah, been in touch with scholars and he knows what knowledge is. He said that his auntie, who absolutely was just a normal housewife, nothing, hadn't studied any in-depth deen, she essentially started taking these classes with a particular organization, and they gave her license apparently to teach tafsir within 3 months. Basically from nothing to teaching tafsir to other women in the community within 3 months. That's just not possible. That somebody knows no tafsir and then they just start teaching tafsir. Yes, they could probably read a tafsir book with others, but to actually teach it. And mashallah, we have many alims and alimas, male and female scholars who've studied several years the Arabic, the fiqh, the hadith, and they've studied tafsir, and they don't feel confident. So our purpose of this course is, by the end of it, we encourage everybody to teach tafsir. And one of the things that we've instated in the last few years of this course is that in the second year they have to literally teach 2 tafsir classes, and then they get graded on that. One tafsir class, they have to provide a 7 to 10 minute session of an ongoing tafsir class using 2 specific tafsirs. I think it's Baydawi and Razi, to teach a group of general public. So they have to imagine that everybody else sitting there is general public, and how they would pitch it and how they would deliver it. Then the second session that they have to offer, again between 7 to 10 minutes or so, is they have to assume that they're speaking to a group of ulama, alimat, students of knowledge or academics. And then they have to use two other tafsirs, Abu Su'ud and Alusi, to prepare for that one and pitch that. And so we see how they would deliver one on a more advanced level and one on a more general level, because there's a difference in that. So that's what we're trying to do. So that's the tafsir class. MashaAllah, it's absolutely amazing for us to be able to understand the Quran, have then access to it. Of course, nobody becomes a professional or a specialist in 1 or 2 years, but it definitely helps you to get onto that road to do that. So that was the tafsir class. Now let me just quickly move into the jurisprudence class and explain that. Again, with the jurisprudence class, which has been going on, it's probably one of these tafsir and jurisprudence is probably one of our most popular classes. We have, mashallah, multiple students every year. So the jurisprudence class, same thing. What we're trying to do in that is a few things. Number one, we teach, if you take the full class, we teach the dalail and maqasid. So evidences of what, of the rulings, where to find them. And maqasid, which means what are the objectives and what is the history and what is the development of the Hanafi madhab as such. And then number two is the usul al-fiqh. So we teach the usul al-fiqh it's the classical fiqh that people, classical usul fiqh rather, that they would have studied in usul al-shashi and Nur al-Anwar maybe and other books like that. But it's done in a modern format, dealing with a lot more of the modern discussions of usul that are not usually covered in these books, in the earlier books that I'm saying. So alhamdulillah, that's something that becomes much more useful. And then after that we have the lubab, which is the furu' al-fiqh. Now that's which is probably the highlight of this course, in the sense that the focus in this course is to teach the students to read carefully and to understand it in a nuanced way. Fiqh is a very exacting science. They don't waste words in the text. In fiqh, you don't waste words. The authors do not waste words. And remember, these texts that we're using, they are hundreds of years old and they've been refined, and there's commentaries written on them. So what we do is we give access, we get the students to be able to review and research the higher level commentaries of these books, so that they can equip themselves. They can essentially empower themselves to be able to take a text and find out how to solve it. That's very, very important, to find out how to solve it. So they will check the shuruhat, the commentaries, and then again they will learn. And this is a much more involved class, where we get the students to literally translate. Now translation has to be very apt. It can't be roundabout translations, which many students are used to doing. It's very particular, using the right kind of terminology, not missing any letter. In fact, if a ba is used somewhere, bi something, then what kind of a ba is that? If it's ba iwadiyya, so we teach kitab al-buyu, then it needs to be translated as a ba to show compensation, to show payment for something. So we try to, mashallah, the students eventually do pick up. Alhamdulillah, we've had a lot of success in this too. They do pick up the nuances of every letter. And believe me, if they do this class, then their reading in other aspects really improves, because they've learned to read critically. They've learned not to miss, to overlook. They've learned to really focus on everything. And then again, they have to teach at least 1 or 2 classes, right? And again, they get graded on that. And they have to prepare the lesson, they have to teach the lesson, and then after they get graded and they get the feedback of where they could improve and so on. So alhamdulillah, I would say that most of the students who pull it through the year, they end up being able to teach the class. And that's amazing, right? That's really amazing about that. So that's the jurisprudence class. And then Maulana Zishan, who teaches that beyond the 6 books, is not here. This is our offering. We don't have a full scope ulumul hadith, because that's huge, but we do have beyond the 6 books, and this is that you've completed the 6 books of hadith. Now, what are the hadith sciences? What are the various different main texts within that? So Maulana Zishan, mashallah, he goes and explains through the various different books on usul al-hadith and so on, where to look, what they're all about. I believe he gives some lessons and tests and set some tasks for the students of, how to do takhrij and how to find a reference somewhere and how to do the how to assess one of the narrators, one of the transmitters, and also I think he also discusses some of the critique in terms of the hadith studies from especially the Western scholars, Orientalists and so on, and how to respond to that. This is a very much shorter course than the other three that we've discussed so far. It's shorter than the jurisprudence, is shorter than the fiqh, the tafsir and the aqidah, the theology course, but it's mashallah full of, and Mawlana Zishan is very good at what he does. So that's the course on ulum al-hadith. And then finally, I think what I have left is actually a course, one of the few courses that Whitethread offers for the general public, and that's specifically for women. Right, and because it's in the morning, it's for those stay-at-home mothers usually, or women who are there on a Thursday and Friday. It runs on a Thursday and Friday. This year we're going to add a new aspect to it. Until now we've not been able to do that, but it's called the Light of Knowledge course. And there's 2 levels in that. This is for basically any women out there who are not scholars. Right, they are scholars, they can still join. We've had alimas joining this, but it's really for just the general person who wants to understand more about their faith. Very practical, very hands-on, and it's taught by, mashallah, very mature female teachers, and with a view to, applying that knowledge, with a view to understand it in a practical sense, rather than just lots and lots of theory. And subhanallah, this year what we're going to do, and we've not been able to do this until now, this year we're going to do, we've realized that there's a lot of women who want to take this class, but they can't attend live, because they may be in different time zones or they work. So this year, inshallah, this class, just like nearly all of our other classes except the Iftā course, right? This is a class where they will have now recordings so they can catch up later as well. Okay, so this may not apply to many of you here, because many of you here may be already students of knowledge who don't want that general class, but this is so that you can mention it to others in your family, especially sisters who are available at that time that this takes part, or any other time. It's only 2 days a week, I think 7 or 8 hours, or in total 4 hours and 4 hours, or actually no, 3 hours, 3.5 hours or something, 2 days a week. So it's about 7 hours for the full course or so. And everything is online. So all of these courses are actually online. All of these are online. That's why, mashallah, we've had students on here from around the world, including from India, Bombay, from I can't remember now where they're all from, but from Japan and so on. So all of the classes are online, including the Iftā course is online, right? They're all online. The only difference, and I'll discuss the Iftā course now and then open up to questions. The only different thing is that the Iftā course is now the only one that doesn't have recordings. So it is something that you have to take. It is something that you have to take live, because that's a very involved course. Right, and it's not something you can just catch up. Although what we do is that sometimes for some of our students, if they're sick or they just can't come for that particular day, they request that particular class for that day is recorded, and we do that for them specially, right? But otherwise, it's not a class that you can take. Like, alhamdulillah, this year, for example, we had one of the students, he's a doctor in America. He did his jurisprudence course where he would try to attend live, but he could not attend the tafsir class live. He's a doctor, works at various times and so on. So that he managed to do, and there's lots of students who do manage to do it very regularly, even though we never see them in class, right? It would be nice for us to see them in class, of course, but we never see them in class. But then, of course, one thing with online courses that you have to be very diligent. Otherwise, you could sign up, take a few, and then it gets a bit overwhelming. And you think you're going to catch up, and then you don't catch up. One thing, just like what Dr. Safaruk said earlier, in all of these classes, especially the jurisprudence class and the tafsir class even more, we want encouragement. We have a policy of nobody should be left behind. We also have a policy of nobody should suffer in silence. So, we're going to encourage you. And to be honest, the tafsir class is the best years that we have had, is where we've had students who contribute, students who, interact, students who question, students who, provide difficult questions for us to answer. Because really, that's the purpose of this class, is to solve issues. And we don't profess to know everything, but if a question comes up, some controversy, some issue, then we can at least research it. And it gives us all a chance to do that. So that's really what we look for here. We're not a class which is a monologue, where it's just one-sided. The teacher will give this big dars, and then you just don't say anything, and then you disappear. That's absolutely not Whitethread. Whitethread is very different, where, you know, it's all about interaction, because that's how, inshallah. So the Iftā course, you know, the description of that is online. It is probably one of the most difficult courses out there on Iftā, because ultimately we do one thing which many other places don't manage to do usually, which is that we cover probably a larger set of questions than anybody else, about 1,000 questions over the 2 years, right? And I would say, we could probably say that the 1,000 questions that you will cover, they've been carefully selected over the last 8 years. Well, actually, no, they've been improved in the last 8 years. The original set of questions were taken from my classes in Saharanpur, which were only about 500 questions, or 65 to 550 questions. We added on to that, on the different subjects. We took out the non-kind of Western related questions, which were very specific to India, right, specific to villages and so on, which we're not going to be dealing with. Well, at least, you know, we're not dealing with it right now. And we added a lot of the contemporary kind of questions. So by the end of the 2,000 questions, if you've done them well, you would probably have done 80 to 90% of the questions you would ever be asked, you know, related to salat, wudu, purity, fasting, hajj, and especially marriage and divorce, and also related to the buyu. You know, it wouldn't cover 80% because trade is just so complicated today, but it definitely gives you the tool to be able to learn it and to look more into it. But trade is a very, very complex idea with the way things are moving. But it gives you more than 80% of the questions you would ever have to, you know, ever be asked. And that gives you a huge amount of confidence. Aside from that, we also obviously read many books. So then within, I've seen that within 6 to 7 months, even of the first year, right, students become very adept at reading Arabic texts. And they could probably teach any fiqh book afterwards, at least if they qualify the first year, if they finish the first year of the course and upgrade to the second year. Not everybody gets to upgrade to the second year, because it is, you know, you really have to show that you've developed a juridical insight, jurisprudential insight rather. And obviously a few people don't make it, right? I don't want to give you, I don't want to, you know, show any despondency here, but it's just to say that if you do make it through after 1 year, you will probably be very good, because you've read so much text, right? And you've become so accustomed to the fiqhi text that if you were to teach hidayah, it would become so much easier for you to teach hidayah. For example, in the local madrasa or something, you'd know exactly where to look to prepare for it, where to look for auxiliary ideas and other rulings and so on. So that's the Iftā course. And alhamdulillah, that's pretty much a description of all of our courses. And unless I've left something out, let us take the questions. What is the level of Arabic required for language, style, and structure of the Quran for the tafsir course? I would say at least intermediate, because we're going to look at the Quranic text and we're going to have to understand it from Arabic. MashaAllah, the other thing that happens to our students, especially in our jurisprudence and Iftā program, is that whereas they've maybe spent several years translating without being able to, they understand the Arabic, they look at the Arabic and they translate it. We try to get them to think in Arabic without having to translate it in their mind. So one is that they've learned to translate the Arabic either into Urdu or into English, but you still have to translate it, then understand it and comprehend it. So what we try to do is that we make them read so much of it that they actually understand it directly. So they're understanding it in their mind, the text, the Arabic text, they're understanding, they're thinking in Arabic in that sense. They don't have to use English. Of course, to translate it, you'll have to use English, but in terms of the conception of what they're reading, they understand it directly. And any student of Arabic who is able to conceive of Arabic and think in Arabic, that's amazing. You know, that is, then you can read pretty much, you know, most things out there in Arabic. So what is the level of Arabic required for language, style, and structure of the Quran for the tafsir course? you do need to, like, pick up any tafsir course. Ibn Kathir, for example. Can you read it and make out most of it? If you can, then this is for you. If you're going to struggle with, you only understand like 20% of it, then while we do help people along, right, well, we do help you, and if you're just rusty and you need to improve, you may be able to get it, but otherwise it may be difficult for you, right? Because we don't translate everything, but we do try to explain difficult words and so on, and complex sentence structures. Is there any prerequisite for the Women's Light of Knowledge course? None at all. For the Women's Light of Knowledge course, I don't think there's any prerequisite. Just join, right? That one is, you don't need it. It's literally, that starts off at the beginning, and inshallah, as far as I know, I don't think there's a prerequisite. How does the Iftā work part-time? It's just over 4 years instead of 2 years, 4 years or 3 years. So you do half the sessions in each of the 4 years. So instead of the 4 classes per year, you do 2 of them. Although I have to say that 2 of those part-time years will be more, because they will include the fatwa writing, which requires then a student to research for quite a few hours outside it. Unless you want to split the fatwas as well, then you will need about 2.5 hours outside of class, 2.5 to 3 hours outside for all 4 of your years, if you want to do half the questions each of the 4 years, and you want to split the questions up as well. If the student is a bit weak in it, can he still follow the Iftā course? You could follow the Iftā course, but you're going to struggle with writing your fatwas, and the fatwas is essentially the big part of this. So unless you are not from England and you are from another country, like if you're from India, Pakistan, and you want to write in Urdu, then that would be fine, because your answers will be in Urdu, then it'll be fine. But it depends on what your language is in, right? And if you're going to be ultimately working in English, then you're going to need English, because otherwise we have some very talented students, but what would let them down is their ability to articulate themselves in English. Because ultimately your fatwa is what you write. And if you can't explain and articulate yourself in English, then your fatwa is not going to sound right. So that will be an issue, but you can actually contact our admin to decide what your level is if you feel. But anybody who is thinking of the Iftā course, then, until the course begins, I would say that please do work on your English. Okay, what are the questions? If I'm unable to make every day from Monday to Friday, could I still do the Iftā part-time? No, that wouldn't work, because we do require somebody there to be there every day of that week. Yes, if you miss once in a while because of some sickness, but otherwise every day is an important day. You're going to miss so much. So much is covered in the Iftā program. Once in a while, we can always record the course for you, but it won't be something that you can miss regularly, because otherwise, it's too difficult to keep track of what you've missed and to catch up with that. Maybe in the future, there may be something where we work out another model or something like that. Okay, do we have any more? Are there any conditions in terms of the computer laptop used to the Iftā course and jurisprudence course? Well, requirements are just that you should be able to log in from wherever you are, unless you're coming on site. If you're coming on site, then it's fine. If you're not coming on site, then of course you need to log in from somewhere, whether that's a desktop or a laptop. It doesn't make a difference, or even an iPad. I don't like iPads because they're a bit restrictive, but if that's what it is, and on your phone is difficult. Now, to be honest, if there's a serious student who shows their commitment and they just don't have a laptop, we have got them laptops. We're willing to, inshallah, give them a laptop. So that should, basically, if you're a talented student, you really want to do it and you're committed, you don't have a laptop, I don't think that should stop you, because we can get you a laptop, inshallah. For the advanced Aqeedah and philosophy, what level of knowledge is required for the master course in Islam philosophy science? The advanced Aqeedah, the Aqeedah aspect of it, the classical text of it, you need to know Arabic to a decent level, although we pretty much translate everything in those 2 books. So we do translate everything, so you should be able to get everything. And then for the philosophy section, you don't need any Arabic. Well, yeah, you don't need Arabic, to be honest. Anybody can take that course, as long as you can just think on a more abstract and higher level. You don't really need Arabic for half of the, for the other half of the theology course. If I would like to learn about the maqasid of the Sharia and the thinking and hikmah behind the rules, which Iftā answers? Iftā is to talk about rulings. unless we of course get a question. Now the maqasid, you'd have to probably take the maqasid course to ask the questions there for that. But unless somebody asks us a question of what's the wisdom behind an answer, right? And we do then have that. So in terms of the miscellaneous answers, in the end of the second year, then that's probably where that would be covered. If one doesn't know Arabic, and Rayyan course is suitable. Yes, if somebody doesn't know Arabic, then that's Rayyan courses, right? Otherwise, if it's a sister, it's the Light of Knowledge course. Otherwise, Rayyan course is pretty much for everybody and anybody, right? That doesn't require you to know Arabic at all. So the Rayyan courses is that. Will the Sibawayh number 3 will be running this year? Arifai, do you know if the Sibawayh number 3 is running this year?
We're still in discussion regarding the Sibawayh level 3. As long as there's enough interest, inshallah, we can definitely put on.
Yeah, so I guess for some of those classes, we need a minimum number. And if we have that minimum number, we can run that class. So maybe you can just join and then, yeah. Are there any particular kitabs that one would require for the Iftā course? Of course there is. There better be, right? There are, and you can check a list of that online. The courses that, the kitabs that you would require. But again, I have no problem if somebody wants to use a PDF of it, as long as they personalize that PDF. So, you get a PDF and then, you start adding your notes to it and so on, as long as you protect it and preserve it and save it and record it. Of course, the physical copies are much better, but you're not required to buy, tens of kitabs. I think the only book that you should have physical copy of are probably about 4 or 5 books, like necessarily. The rest of them, and even those, if you wanted and you ask that, could I just use PDFs, and you don't, there's a reason for that, we would work with you on that. Is there a course that covers the maqasid directly other than, no, you've seen all of our courses online, so you can just check there. I don't think there's anything more. That's the only one that we have so far. Is using ChatGPT allowed in the Iftā course to refine, to do wording only? To be honest, we do have to allow some of our students to do that, because otherwise it gets very frustrating if they can't, pick up enough English. So yeah, unfortunately, that's a tool. You can't, we'll know instantly if you've asked ChatGPT to give you an answer, because it's so obvious. In fact, alhamdulillah, through the experience we've had, we can literally nearly always, and alhamdulillah, most of our students don't ever do that anyway, right? But we've had a case or two in the past where they've tried to copy somebody else's answer. You're not going to survive too much. This is an everyday thing, right? It is such a closely related course, closely associated course with us, that we could tell if somebody came up with a ChatGPT. ChatGPT is recognizable, but if you just use ChatGPT with your own information to just construct the sentence better for you, or critique your own answer, so that, we say to the students, ask ChatGPT to critique your answer and learn to, so keep ChatGPT as an instructor or an editor for yourself, rather than tell it to do everything and then just use that, right? Make it critique your work so that you learn. And so, yes, definitely you can use ChatGPT as a tool, right, to edit for you and to help you and to critique you and question you on how you're writing something. The Balagha course, I'm not understanding exactly what your question is about that. Okay, do we have any more questions? Have I missed any questions from above? If someone is retired and has no Dars Nidami background, can they join? Absolutely. The Arabic level 1 course is literally for anyone. It's for anyone. We initially used to have it just for graduates and so on, and students of knowledge, but now it's pretty much for anyone. The Balagha course will be running this year, inshallah. It's part of the Tafsir class. It will be running, inshallah.
Musa, I believe the Balagha course means in regards to level 3
Sorry?
of the Sibawayh program.
What about it?
There's a Balagha course that we have as part of the level 3 program.
There's a Balagha course as part of the
level 3 Sibawayh program.
So the level 3 is the Balagha one, or there's a...
We have a different, we tried different modules. We're looking at different approaches of how we do level 3.
So just look out for that. Just look out for that to see if there's a part 3 Sibawayh Balagha this year. We're not 100% sure yet. How many hours outside class are required for the Arabic level 1? I mean, I'm not sure if any of the teachers are here, but I would assume probably 1 to 2 hours. At least 1 hour, I think. Probably say 1 hour. But if you're asking for yourself, I don't think you need to take level 1. If you're asking for somebody else, but I don't think you need to take level 1. Yeah, so maybe for your father, yeah. Do all the Arabic Sibawayh programs run in the evening? They all currently, when do they run? Some of them run in the morning, some of them run in the afternoon or something.
This year they're all running in the morning. We have considered doing something, an evening program.
Okay, good.
Just
So
looking
look
at...
out for that, because we do want to start a lot of these courses eventually in the evenings, inshallah. What you should do is probably sign up to get the updates, and once we do that, either in the evening or the weekends, inshallah, it will be mentioned. What do you recommend to go over before Iftā for someone who has just finished Dawrah? Well, I mean, if you're just asking for in a month or two, we'll give you some books to read. You can sign up, do the test and so on, get accepted, and then we'll tell you what books to read before that, along with improving your English. If you don't want to, I mean, the good thing about this year is that though we take students every year, it's easier to get in this year because it's level 1 this year. We're starting our 5th batch, our 5th cohort, right? So their first year is going to be this year, and the next year, the year after, is going to be their second year. Now, what happens is that we also allow students to sometimes enroll into the second year, but they have to be a lot more developed for that, because otherwise they're going to really struggle. But alhamdulillah, in every second year we've had the 4 cohorts we've had students who've jumped into the second year and they've done very, very well. Some of them have even come first in the second year, but they've done very well. They're just very smart. But it's much easier to get into the first year. So this September we'll be starting our 5th cohort of the first year. However, if somebody doesn't want to start Iftā this year, then what we always suggest is that they take the jurisprudence course, because that really helps to build up. We've usually, every cohort will have somebody, 1 or 2 students who jump in after the jurisprudence course when they understand that they really enjoyed the fiqh, enjoyed the jurisprudence. So it depends on your particular circumstance. I would say that, if your Arabic is good enough and so on, and you have juridical, you have an interest in jurisprudence, then just apply for the Iftā course itself. And then within the test, we'll actually tell you if we think that it's better for you to do the jurisprudence course rather than the Iftā program. Are there any breaks during the year? Yes, we have, the standard breaks that any school will have. The education, the universities will have. So we have a break in winter time. We have a break at Easter time. We have these half-term reading weeks. Of course, we have Ramadan is all a break, and then we have the summer break. So right now we're all on break. The madrasa ended, the final term ended last Wednesday, and then after that we've got a break all the way until the 3rd week of September, inshallah. If I can't make the online session, how do contribution, discussion, question answer work? Of course, I'm interested in all during work hours, school drop-off. Submit a question, they answer in the next live. Yes, you could do that. What we'll do is we'll have at least one of the students to partner with you. So you will put your questions on the Canvas, which is our online portal. And you will add your questions there, and one of the students will read it out to us. So we'll answer the questions during the next class or so. That way everybody benefits from an answer, and then you can just listen to that in the recording. I repeated Fiqhul Buyut several times, but I seem to forget the terminology after a while because I'm not using it in my everyday life. How could I pass the test for Iftā if a lot of it is blurred out? We don't, in the Iftā test is not like so specific that, know this terminology and that terminology. because we don't expect students to be so well grounded in terminology and so on, that then what's the point of the Iftā? The point of it is that, can you read Arabic? Can you understand the text? Can you understand the nuances of the text? What level are you? And if you demonstrate that you can read properly, and if you've read Fiqhul Buyu several times, then I don't think you should have a problem, just judging from that. Because if somebody understands Buyu, then mashallah, you know, this is not a question on, you know, like they have in madrasas, like some of these popular questions that, what is the zakat nisab for the bintu labun and bintu makhat? We don't test our students that way. That's not very useful, to be honest. We look at their capability and their potential to check out and read something and analyze something. So I don't think you should have an issue just judging from what you're saying. Do you think I should repeat the Lubab course or apply for Iftā part-time? I don't know. If you've got the commitment for the Iftā, do Iftā part-time. Yeah, I would probably say that. Okay, Jazakallah khair. Again, you can always message us, or you can even call me directly. My number is available on the contact us page on zamzamacademy.com. If you want, you can even contact me directly if you've got a specific question about something. Otherwise, just contact the admin. Would using a dictionary be allowed in the intake of Iftā? I think you may be overplaying this. I think you won't need a dictionary, a text from the Hidayah, for example, and you're told to explain it. Now, if while explaining it, you want to use the dictionary, that's up to you, right? But if you're going to take like 5 minutes to find out a word, then that's going to obviously, personally, from what you're explaining, I don't think you should have a problem, right? If you've read Fiqhul Buyut several times, I don't think it should be an issue. So I don't think you should worry about that. The test is a holistic test to understand, you know, how you work on these things. And yeah. Now, if the specific written text, I'll have to see what the guidelines on that. Are you allowed to use dictionary to do that or not? In terms of the oral text, it'd be difficult probably to use a dictionary. The tafsir class is 1 year. The only class that's 2 years here is the Iftā class. Everything else is a year, meaning 1 year term, which means that you still get about 3 months off in the year. So it's about 9 months in total, I think. Yeah, again, if I can just encourage everybody to let the women of their families and other friends and so on know regarding the sisters class, which is the Light of Knowledge class, because it's a very useful class, mashallah, for women. They love it, mashallah. They hardly want to leave because it's very wholesome. You know, they got something to do. It makes sense of life and so on. So do let people know about that. Okay, otherwise, Jazakallah khairan to all of you. And please do keep Whitethread in, because we've got lots of developments happening. We've got our new place, which is coming up soon. So make dua that comes up smoothly. Then we should have a lot more on offer, inshallah. And also our training masjid, which is being developed right now in our new facilities, inshallah. That's a place where many of our students will then be able to actually practice in real time, you know, teaching, inshallah. So we have all of these intentions, inshallah. So keep us in your du'as, and Allah bless you all, and we'll see you soon, inshallah. Arif bhai, over to you if there's anything else.
No, that's fine. Jazakumullah khair, and for all our teachers who attended and spoke about their respective subjects. Inshallah, please do go onto the website. This courses.whitethread.org, as seen on the page. And inshallah, remember us in your du'as as well. The sooner you sign up, please take advantage of the discounts that are available at the moment. The monthly installments are only available until the 31st of July for our courses, which is Islamic Jurisprudence, the Tafsir course, and the Aqeedah course. all other courses have a current discount available. Each one has different discounts available. The jurisprudence has a 50% discount, so please do take advantage of that as soon as possible. Inshallah. Jazakumullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.